Welcome back to the SPL. We just saw Space Station able to claim a very decisive victory there in the first set of the day. So now we're moving into eUnited going up against LG. Should certainly be an exciting set.
And we saw this one not too long ago. In fact, in the previous split during the springtime, we saw the very first match-off against eUnited and Luminosity, where Luminosity, in fact, defeated eUnited in a 2-0 fashion.
That's right. LG came out of the gates swinging at the start of the spring split, actually able to take down eUnited. They weren't able to keep going quite at that same pace, but I think this LG roster were able to prove that they're here to play and they're able to play strong. But it's going to be pretty tough up against this eUnited squad. I mean, a stacked roster.
Luminosity, for what it's worth, has always, to me, felt like a team that's going to be looked at more in the fall split. But eUnited, I mean, they're a team, ever since they established themselves as the world champs for Season 4, I think it's been an uphill battle from then on out to really keep themselves confirmed as the overall #1 team in the world.
And they had a slow start to this. It wasn't just LG. They dropped a couple sets at the start of the spring split, but they regrouped and they managed to qualify all the way to Masters in that second place position behind Space Station. And a lot of it was because of play in the jungle from this man, Screammmmm. If I'm in a meta where the junglers are important, then I want to have a guy like Screammmmm on my team. He plays stuff that you don't always expect. He plays aggressive, and he knows as long as he can, keep it 100, he can certainly be one of the top junglers here in North America, if not in the world.
I think there's something to be said about those who have a strong Mercury, because Mercury, I think, can really dictate the pacing of a match, especially if he's able to get off to a strong start, like what we've seen from Screammmmm. Typically, whenever he goes for the Mercury, he's usually got at least 2 or 3 kills before the 10-minute mark.
And this is interesting, too, to talk about Screammmmm being such a catalyst for this team, because last year it was mostly Benji, especially towards the end of Season 4, right, when eUnited really started climbing up through the ranks. Benji was able to just play Kakal and play Hercules better than you. But now here, with some of the other solo laners catching up a little bit, they've relied on Screammmmm and Venenu to really play well for them.
I think that the other members from eUnited kind of recognized that they weren't going to be able to just fully throw the responsibility onto Benji to kind of jump them ahead in a lot of those team fights. I think that what eUnited have really been trying to accomplish, and what they spend most of their time focusing on in the spring split, was just figuring out where they were going to be able to make up for the lack of solo lane attention, because it hasn't been solo laners that have really been able to truly decide how a match's outcome is going to be relayed. I think that a lot of that responsibility has been shifted more towards mid and jungle. It's kind of been a recurring theme, so to say, in competitive play. But I think in recent play, we have seen a lot more of that Season 4 vibes of the solo lane carrying a lot more weight, and that's why we have seen some more junglers kind of spending a lot of time and attention towards the solo lane.
And solo lane's going to be important here in this matchup, especially with that solo jungle duo over there of Kiki and Weekend as their direct opponents for LG. But I expect them to come in putting up a very difficult fight. We heard Weekend talk about it when we had some of his interviews with him. He really feels like this LG squad kind of clicks. A lot of people consider this LG roster like some of the leftovers, maybe, like not the ones you'd picked priority, or at least that's what you heard a lot. But Weekend and the rest of the squad, they did not feel this way. They like the way that they work together, and they like their cut. They like this team.
To the contrary, I want Luminosity to continue playing their own game. Anytime they try to go more towards the meta, we see them just getting spanked. I think that this team benefits whenever they shift all of their resources towards Clout in the duo lane, because if you give Clout a lead, he will help you farm the enemy team. We've seen that happen time and time again during a lot of their successful wins. And if Luminosity want to try and throw eUnited off of their game, I'm not saying it'll be easy, but I think they definitely need to just shift all of their mind towards Clout, and maybe even a little bit towards Keegs, although I feel as though Keegs is one of those players who doesn't get... I think he's undervalued right now.
Yeah, Keegs is certainly a strong mid laner here for this LG squad, so I expect him to be a big part of what they're able to do do well here in this game 1. But speaking of ready, the picks are ready here for this very first game. We'll go ahead and get those on the screen for you. eUnited up against LG. And Taka, you talked about it. LG are one of those teams that kind of has their own identity, right? Kiki is almost never going to play the meta stuff. Weekend was one of the first ones to play Achilles well in the jungle. Geno picks Geno stuff. I mean, this squad, I feel like, should play to their identity, and I hope that we'll see that here in these picks and bans as eUnited already take away the She Belong.
Geno, a.k.a. Athena 2018. That was the guy that he came in really trying to make a statement on with this Luminosity roster. I wouldn't be too surprised here to maybe even see Luminosity trying to go for the Athena as a first pick selection. for themselves, but leaving it open just means that eUnited, there's a strong possibility they take it for themselves.
And I like them banning this Achilles away. It's a very strong pick for LG and in the meta as well. But you're right, Athena is on the table. Wouldn't be surprised if eUnited pick it up, but why not? They're going to take the Guan very strong in the meta right now, so put that in the hands of possibly PolarBearMike. Also could possibly go over to Benji. There's a lot of options there.
Well, there's still some strong choices left over, and that's going to spell Athena guaranteed for Luminosity, and no real reason not to. They could choose to maybe look for a second or third pick Odin here, but wanted to make sure that they confirm their mid laner first. We have seen a lot of prevalence towards this Thoth selection yet again here in the summer split, so scary to see that god on Keeks.
Yeah, you're going to have a very strong performance for Keeks in the mid lane of the Thoth. I would imagine. He really was kind of, I don't know if surprise is the right word, but to come out looking as strong as he did, making his transition back over to PC, it was so cool to see Keeks be able to have that kind of performance, and hopefully he can turn another one of those on the Thoth. But he's going to have a tough opponent in that Agni for Venenu.
I love this Agni pickup for Venenu. Not only is it a great god in terms of being able to match some of the range that the Thoth provides, but also it's Venenu. This is a god that some might not remember, but it was probably one of the original gods that Venenu first started picking up, I believe, when he made that original transition into the mid lane.
He's been doing excellent ever since then. A big part of why they were able to win at Worlds in particular. Venenu really turned in a strong performance for them, and he's been doing it ever since. It is going to be into that Odin, though, so right now, most of eUnited, really all of them, are going to struggle getting outside of that Odin cage, but we've seen it before. You can't just pick Odin because it has a good matchup. You got to make sure the follow-up is there.
I think this was to be expected, and that's part of the reason why eUnited also chooses to go for the Agni, because you want, as much as the enemy team wants AoE damage to cover the ring, you also don't want to have to worry about AoE damage occurring while you're still inside of it trying to punish anyone from the enemy team who's in there. It essentially ends up being where I could almost see this Odin ring working against Luminosity to a certain extent if they're not super careful with the timing.
I love this Ratatoskr pick, though. It's something that's been really strong in the meta, especially when it's paired with the Athena for the double sort of global presence with that ultimate. It's such a disruptive in the team fights. You can able to land those knockups. It's big setup. So I love seeing Weekend on this pick.
The Daji, though. I love the Daji. And for one reason and one reason only. Daji is a pick that you are specifically looking to target the Thoth with. I don't think that Thoth, because of the fact that he doesn't have a CC immune ultimate, this is going to force Keegs into having to play a little bit more passive than what he probably was originally aiming for. And now Luminosity are going to have a lot of concerns in terms of can we keep our Thoth alive?
And it's also not a bad matchup into the Odin, not just being able to use the Trickster Spirit, but going up onto the Pal-Out, right? You're not going to be worrying about whatever nonsense is happening inside the cage. Daji is very safe in that way in the jungle. So a good matchup into the Thoth and a good defensive option into the Odin. The response, though, from LG is going to be to put Clout on that Rama, a pick that we know he likes to play. Very strong late game hunter.
eUnited's draft has me sold, though. I liked a lot of the original picks that we saw coming forward for Luminosity, and we're like, oh, that's really good. And then you see the response from eUnited, and you're like, oh, that's even better.
Yeah,
and that's kind of just where I'm left at.
Yeah, this team fight from eUnited going to be very strong. So I know you like their draft. Is that enough for you to give the prediction over to eUnited to win this first set?
I think both the draft and eUnited still having a little bit more player experience.
LG won this matchup at the beginning of spring. That doesn't sway you.
It doesn't sway me.
All right, well, let's see if LG can kind of tap back into that magic that worked for them way back in week 1 of spring. Casters, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks a lot, guys. Hopefully that's not how the game starts. Thanks a lot, guys. Tom and Tolly here to bring you our second matchup of the day. eUnited versus LG is a spicy one. Because eUnited obviously have the trophy in their bedrooms, but LG was able to take advantage of them in the spring split.
I'm looking at these two specific junglers when it comes to this matchup. Scream against Weekend should be a very aggressive one. Daji for Scream, also Ratatoskr for Weekend. It's going to be the global pressure that he might need to allow the setup for keegsmate playing the Thoth. We saw how well Baskin played the Thoth last set. We'll see if keegsmate can do it in this one.
I'm not saying Keegs is Baskin or in any scope like that, but I think Keegs is one of the stronger standout mid laners in our league, despite the fact that he's a little bit newer. He certainly has the talent, and like Taco said, he's probably a little bit underrated. But with this one, LG versus the eUnited squad, Who's going to wind up on top? That's the question we posed to you guys in Mixer chat. Let us know in the poll, and we'll touch upon that during the game. How about you personally, Toli? Where do you feel like this one's going?
I mean, considering the way LG struggled against Trifecta, it's difficult to say how they prepared against eUnited. Two different teams of two different play styles. As we head into the first game, LG needs to figure out a way to shut down the momentum of eUnited, because Screammmmm is definitely one that thrives when he has that early game lead. And not only is it going to be an aggressive assassin out of the jungle, but you're looking at Benji piloting his very comfortable Chulainn.
That said, Kiki is also on his very comfortable Odin. So we'll see how that one works out. Last year at DreamHack Valencia, players were saying that Kiki is one of the better Odins around. So.
What he used to do was actually make those rotations happen in the dual lane, trying to set up his other players. I think he was involved in that Trifecta squad with Snoopy and whatnot, and being able to just make those assistances and get the dual lane ahead, because he's a very selfless player. He doesn't really care if he gets ahead, Kiki in that matter. He just cares about the other lanes instead. That's
generally always been sort of his mentality, whereas Benji is the opposite end of it. Benji's going to be on the opposite end of the poll as well. 74% of the folks at home think that Benji is going to be the one on the winning team. I guess it's less about Benji, more about eUnited. But Benji certainly has been very, very potent. He's going to pop the sprint here, Toli. What can you tell me about this move?
Just 1 minute. That's all it's going to matter. He thought he was a little bit too far away to receive the full experience benefit, and doesn't want to falter against an Odin that thrives more in the early game than he does at the late. So any sort of advantage Benji can get, whether it's, keeping up in the levels against Kiki's Odin, that'll give him the slight edge, just to make sure he doesn't falter behind early.
So that sprint going to be used early. Interesting to note that it is a sprint. PBM taunted out of his Towelo Assault. That can definitely be one of the cruxes of Guan. Very, very powerful pick, but the fact that his Towelo can be interrupted so easily is certainly a problem.
It is, but the thing of the matter is, with a cooldown reduction at the later stages, that's not going to be an issue. If Athena is using her taunts to stop PBM from using Towelo Assault, well, Athena's not using the taunts to engage for the rest of the team, unless the target will be PBM, which could easily be the case.
And that one's going to be interesting to keep an eye on for sure. Don't forget, Towelo Assault does more than just damage. For those of you saying, well, he's in the support position, why would he be doing it? It also strips protections, which is a very big deal. Screammmmm trying to get cheeky there, anticipating Weaken's attempt to invade the enemy jungles, hides behind it, and just scares away, goes boop.
And on top of the protection shred, you're looking also the way that it bunches up minions together. A little bit of a taunt there onto PBM, but the follow-up damage from PandaCat with a red buff. Very respectable. Clout eating also the Heavenly Banner. Needs to back on out there. Very difficult to deal with a Hachiman that has so much range with that Heavenly Banner.
PandaCat feels like he hasn't been as impactful as he has in the past. Yes or no, do you agree? And how and why?
I don't necessarily think that PandaCat faltered at all. He's still the same old PandaCat looking for the plays happen. Now, he's not the same blinking Artemis player the way he was of yesteryear, but times change, and looking to slow down the pace of the game with the map being wider, with farm being more valuable. It's more important to make sure you min-max every sort of PvE farm before you look for the aggressive blink PvP.
So he's gotten a little bit more farm focus. He's certainly refined his playstyle a little bit, but I just feel like his impact on the battlefield isn't what it used to be. Now that could more be a conversation about where the game is headed, where it's much more jungle and mid lane focused.
It is more jungle focused on top of the way Benji just plays in the solo lane. He's usually the one zoning so far away and making the plays that it diminishes what PandaCat is really doing anyway. So if there's other players doing what they need to do, well, PandaCat's still kind of shooting people in team fights this weekend, thinking about whether or not he wants to gank with that through the Cosmos. He will.
Yeah, up in the sky, here he comes. Taunt's going to grab two players. Ratatoskr a little too far away to get either player of the knockup, but PBM gets stunned, dashes away. Nice heal. PandaCat can't turn it around. A failed gank for Weekend.
Just was not in range, I think, of the third swing on the knockup. Unfortunately for Ratatoskr, whenever you're using through the Cosmos, certain walls will kind of prevent you from getting to where you really want to be. So he probably had to zigzag in an awkward position, which he definitely should have been in range, but those walls, man, it hurts.
So it looked like Geno might have just went way too early, but I think you're right. I think you're on the right track where just kind of the pathing was a little bit screwy. Pink's coming out for the left side of the map, but at the end of the day, I think Clout will be fine there by himself for the moment.
It's going to be a matchup of the mid-mages outside of these junglers when we're looking at both keegsmate, the Thoth, and Venenu's Agni. I think that's why the Thoth was picked so early after the Guan from eUnited. They saw what he was able to do against Space Station Gaming. They're like, okay, we're going to respect the Thoth Venenu, take that away. And so it's up to keegsmate now to step it up. And as long as somebody can find the setup, which more than likely will be Geno putting himself out there on the Athena, whereas Weekend probably going to play cleanup crew with that through the Cosmos once the late game starts rolling around.
Really eager to see where DJ Pernicus goes with the build as well. Kiki taking some damage over here on the right side.
Did you say you're eager to see where DJ Pernicus goes with the build as Weekend is trying to get himself out of dodge with a through the Cosmos? Geno going to get pulled back in. Venenu.
Oh no. Geno is not alive. Venenu takes care of him. Kiki's next. The double kill for Venenu. And Benji with the fish flop gets taken out. Keegsmate from a distance. Pretty like Bette Midler. Weekend up front. 2-2. As eUnited answer back.
Great counter gank, honestly. That rotation needed to happen out of keegsmate. If he was not there, it would have been a 2-0 probably. Yeah. Benji was very committed towards diving that between that tier 1, tier 2. Pros and cons of the way Benji likes to play. He likes to play aggressive, but sometimes it could be a hindrance if he's not going to respect the counter gank, that final judgment damage, let alone you take that ultimate off the board. You still got the stun, the hieroglyphic assault, which would have cleaned up Benji that was sitting about that 25% health threshold.
I got to explain why.
The pun? I thought you were about to make an eager pun.
No, there was no pun. There was no pun. And the fact that I said eager and DJ Pernicus is actually really funny. And for what it's worth, DJ and Weekend don't exactly like each other, so I guess I apologize to Weekend for calling him DJ. My mentality is that they honestly have similar playstyles. Maybe I just saw the Guan. No, I'm just kidding. They have similar playstyles, and the Ratatoskr can go tanky.
Yep.
You can see a tanky Ratatoskr in the jungle, and Weekend does have a tendency to look for that sort of setup, especially when you have keegsmate and players like that. Kiki can go aggressive, so there is an option for Weekend to shift into the tanky build, and I think that's reminiscent of some older players. So I apologize for getting the name wrong, Weekend.
Well, outside of Guan jungle, these two players definitely sharing a similar god pull as Weekend goes back down. Venenu, no defensive relics.
Nice play there coming out from Luminosity. Again, keegsmate going to be the culprit. And Benji dashes into the wall as a good ring coming out from Kiki. Looking for the Goomba Stomp comes Geno. And Benji is in trouble. One more shot's going to do it, but Daji gets a kill right before that. Scream takes down Keegs. It's a 2-for-1 in Lumi's favor.
It was a great idea that Scream needed to do. He could have definitely assisted Benji if he really wanted to, but he's like, listen, man, you're trapped in the cage. I don't want to be involved in that next to an Odin and an Athena. Like, who am I going to target out when there's a juicy chicken right in the mid lane?
Maybe thought Rob was the chicken.
I mean, Thoth's a bird.
I guess so.
Did you hear the laugh? Sounds like a bird.
That's true. Actually, Tully, what does a bird laugh sound like?
I am not playing this game with you right now.
I need to. You said it sounded like a bird off of the laugh. I need to know what you think a bird sounds like when it laughs.
So you can go load up the Smite client after this cast, load up Thoth, and press VEL. And that's what a bird laugh sounds like.
I understand that, but when was the last time you heard a bird laugh, Anatoly?
In Smite. It's been a long time since I went outside, F-Dot.
Sometimes they do it to themselves there, folks. 4-3, Luminosity. Interesting game, tied up here, but I feel like Luminosity has a little bit of the wind in their sails. Venenu started off the game and got us a first blood, but was quickly taken advantage of by keegsmate after the fact. And now keegsmate, the first one to hit level 10, and he seems to have been more impactful in the very short game number 1 that we've had so far.
More aggression from Luminosity as they're kind of grouped up, barely avoiding that one with PBM. His spidey senses were tingling about that one. as the corner was just narrowly dodged. And LG going to go back to the right side mid. Harpy's like, all right, maybe next time, PBM.
Scream jumps into the middle of 3 separate players, looking for some chains, grabs nobody in particular. PolarBearMike, however, does use the ultimate. Now he's going to be tossed into Weaken's knockup, but a heal and a dash.
These teams are not afraid to get in the thick of things. Weaken without an ultimate is relying on Defender of Olympus, but it wasn't enough to save him. Kiki trapping 2 in the cage. keegsmate, though, still has Final Judgment. Channels at PBM very low.
And he's going to try to wiggle his way through. Triple taunt coming out from Geno. And he's going to finish off the enemy support by himself with a nice dash. Geno has been looking very good. You heard Taco kind of tongue-in-cheek make fun of the Athena pick over and over again. But at the end of the day, Anatoly, if he's going to play like this every time he has Athena, do it.
Oh, PandaCat forced to use the mounted archery just before the CC was applied. Great timing to hold on to those purification beads. And at the end of the day, after the scuffle, trading out the support for the jungler favors out eUnited. PBM will always take that trade.
I don't know, they use keyboards, not scuffs.
I see you, Thomas. We're in the SPL.
Going back to
You're right.
Going back to the important question I was asking you earlier, though, Toli. What does a bird laugh sound like? I'm gonna need you to reenact this.
I can't. My vocal cords won't allow it.
All right, well, I'll have to figure that one out. If you guys have ever heard a bird laugh, please tweet at @IGAnatoly on Twitter, and maybe you can help us out there, because I don't think I've ever heard a bird laugh.
Just look at Ra. Look at Thoth, man. The evidence is in the pudding, okay?
Pudding?
The pudding.
The pudding.
You never heard that before?
No.
It's in the
pudding.
pudding
Is kind of like milk candy.
Milk candy.
Yeah.
But candy is usually harder than a pudding.
Gummy bears? Starburst? Harder? I don't know about that one, Tilly.
It's soft like my heart for you.
Certainly something to chew on. Luminosity, a little bit of a lead here. They're looking to go ahead and extend it. Scream thought about jumping in.
Oh, he's doing it.
Right on top of Geno, taunted away. keegsmate turning around. Scream already half HP. Jumping on the outside.
Weaken.
Weaken's stuck in the air. He's going to land on PolarBearMike on the front line, Toli. Scream trying to get away, but a beautiful stun from Venenu. Stops him in his
Third
tracks.
one hits. Clout with all 3 snipes onto Scream. Perfect accuracy out of that one. Weaken was kind of hiding in the sky, waiting around for a while, and it forced Scream's hand. He needed to disengage, but nobody was close enough for him to teleport onto.
That's one of the problems of the Daji. But Luminosity, I love this play, Totally. They have a little bit, just a tiny lead, and they're looking to press it. They're looking to push it. They have the momentum. They've got the stun on Venenu. They got Weaken behind him. The dash is good, but the dash from the Rats a little bit better. And Venenu sits down for the 3rd time this contest, just 12 minutes in.
Final Judgment not even needed to be accurate for that one. The flurry of acorns a little too rough to handle out of the level 11 Agni that actually rushed this Rod of Tahuti instead of the Warlock staff. So maybe if he had the health pool instead there, could have survived that encounter.
So I actually like this Rod of Tahuti first item that we've seen a couple of players do. Here's the mentality behind it. You've seen the Chronos Pendant be be a frequent option. And usually what players look for as their first magical item is going to be Warlock staff, like you mentioned, the Chronos Pendant, the Bancroft, or the Book of Thoth. Soul Reaver's a different story. Nobody likes that. My point is that most of these items have about 100 power and are about 2,000 to 2,200 gold. Now, with the Rod of Tahuti, it's 2,400, but has 150 power.
It's a lot.
It's a ton. Now, when you're talking about Agni here, Warlock Staff, I think he's kind of in between. There are characters that you absolutely want the health pool on when you're talking Isis or Hell when you're in the middle lane. And there are characters that you just want raw power on, like a Scylla. And I think Agni's in between. You can kind of pick it and choose it. So I do like this choice for Venenu, and that's a little bit of insight into that Tahuti pickup.
The problem with doing this non-defensive glass cannon style is you're not respecting Luminosity's aggression potential. Weaken can easily dive the backline between the blink, between through the Cosmos. Same idea with Kiki that also picks up the blink. He's looking to trap you in, and there's no Phantom right now. So if you're not available with an Aegis to bail you out, you're not going to receive any healing from the Guan Yu within that cage. You're just a sitting duck, so you need that maximum health pool to just buy you that moment's notice.
I will say, I'll play devil's advocate and side with Venenu real quick. I don't think that the couple of extra 100 HP saves him there. He gets jumped on by the entire team. Scream looking to turn things around will find a chain, but no pull. And so I think really what it comes down to is that with this burst composition from Luminosity, the extra health from the Warlock staff alone probably isn't enough to have him survive getting jumped on by all of these characters, whereas the early 150 power might enable him to kill them before they kill him.
If that's the possibility, then you need to make sure that you play too far back to the point that no one is ever going to go on you. Scream needs to bait himself out a little more. Benji and PBM need to be in the front line, or just have Venenu kind of peel back further. You know, playing the Thoth day in and day out might lead you to believe you have more range than you actually do. Agni has a decent amount of range on top of himself, but not compared to the Thoth. So that's something that he needs to kind of slow down, reassess how he's going to play out game number 1, because currently he's 2 levels behind keegsmate, and a really fed Thoth is scary to handle in the right hands.
Not to mention, the Venenu choice of Agni does have the dash. We'll see where the build goes, though. Looks like he's going to be building into the Chronos pendant next, which I don't hate. A little bit extra cooldown on the Agni. I don't think it's what we normally see on the Agni, but I do like it.
It's definitely important to get as many bombs available in those late game encounters. The stun setup can easily follow up between PandaCat's damage if anybody's next to those 2 squishy hyper carries. Meanwhile, a little bit of a grouping from Luminosity towards this Gold Fury.
They grouped up about 2 minutes ago and didn't pull the trigger. Now, tons of pinks coming out in the mid lane because Benji's making the rotation. A couple of players from Luminosity already standing there in the middle lane.
Kiki was thinking about rotating back to the soul lane, but with Benji's presence in the mid lane, he has to make that half rotation, figure out what he wants to do. You can't allow your team to have to defend 4-on-5, and with teleport available, he can still make the rotation, kind of teleport back to the soul lane, or vice versa. Make the teleport happen in the mid lane while still farming in the soul lane. It's a game of chicken between these 2 teams as they're figuring out who's the confident one to do the Gold Fury, because between Scream and Weekend, you know they're looking for the plays.
PandaCat here in some trouble, but it's going to be Weekend in the sky that might put even more trouble on the board. Here goes PolarBearMike looking for the reversal. Chain's not going to grab anybody. Geno gets stunned. That's it. PandaCat does get taken by Keegs. Clout's in the sky as well, Toli, but he can't find the third shot.
PandaCat just barely able to survive. Geno taunts him back in, but keegsmate already falls to Scream going back in. Venenu on the backside drops the bombs, but Weekend dashes and blinks past him. Scream falls. 2 for 1. eUnited on the retreat.
Wonderful play there by Weekend. Just heads up. Miscommunication there, I think, from the Luminosity boys.
That was the problem of Benji not being involved in the team fight. eUnited's Venenu using the beads, dashing away, PBM doing the damage because Benji will now make the rotation, turning the tides. Clout is only going to rely on his basic attacks. He's with like 2% mana.
And that rotation is just a go-away rotation. Not really looking for any kills, just trying to provide a little bit of pressure relief.
Scream had a very small window to actually catch Weekend with the chains. He caught him during the Flurry of Acorns, which doesn't really allow you to use your purification beads. So if he snap canceled that ultimate immediately after applying the chains, that would have been a free pull, applied the stun, and maybe get the kill.
18.5 or just about 15 kills in total, so a rather active game. 2/3 of those belong to LG, who I think a lot of people would consider to be the bottom card in this matchup. Right now have control of the game as far as gold is concerned, albeit very slightly. Sub 1,000, so I think we're more akin to calling that a tie. But it feels like they've been a lot more active because of the kill count.
Both of these teams have been very active, and it's the junglers engaging. Scream looking for the blinks, engages, but it's always onto Geno, I've noticed. It's always on the Athena because he's doing one of 2 things. Number 1, he's baiting Weekend's ultimate every single time that Scream engages, and that creates a lot of chaos and confusion. Also, in the voice communications that they're doing, that they're trying to make the calls, and whenever you can jumble up those calls, the rest of your team can follow up.
Big plays here for keegsmate. The early Divine Ruin, I think, is a very, very nice look. A lot of mages kind of don't like building into it, but he understands the value of the utility and certainly will go for it.
A little bit of penetration to follow it up, considering that he can easily reach Venenu. That's the only amount of damage that he needs. The healing from PBM, as long as he stays in the back line, that final judgment will be enough to seal the fate out of Venenu if the Aegis is not up.
Got to be careful of that one to make sure that you have all of your relic timers in your head, or just observe your relic timers before you go into the battle. Left side, Gold Fury started up by Luminosity.
Both solo laners slapping each other with pillows on the right side, while still LG doing this for free. PBM can't really do anything about this. Final Judgment didn't even need to be used. Enough vision around the perimeter to secure it for LG. A small lead, not one to write mom about, but it's still a good enough one to build off of.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not writing mom that I'm graduating college just yet, but I'm certainly telling mom that I got into a program. 2,000 gold lead is a wonderful step to the later parts of the game. With this 2,000 gold lead, you can look to find the smaller objectives and turn that into a 5K gold lead, which I personally think is the spot where you can start to take fights and have the overall advantage.
This is risky. eUnited pulling the Pyromancer in front of the Sentry out of LG, and that's what they've been able to get the advantage of with the gold lead. It's all the vision control. These little sentries are what's making or breaking these objectives, as Benji in a 1v2. Not going to eat too much trouble with a tanky Odin and a tanky Athena, as he's the level 19 Chulainn, highest in the game, right tied with Clout.
Venenu only level 16. Certainly got to deal with that one. Kiki can jump over the gank here. Be safe under his tower. Level 19 is his direct opposition. Lock him in, but still certainly not enough damage to kill him. Benji very, very tanky.
Yeah, man, PBM, well, it's about to negate this damage with just about 2, maybe even 3 heals. Just a little damage check out of Kiki, more than anything. He wasn't expecting to kill this level 19 Chulainn that has so much physical defense, but still enough to deter Luminosity with a timing to do the Pyromancer pull on the left side. Cloud is split pushing in the tier 2.
Meanwhile, the guys from Luminosity cannot get there in time. Tier 2 tower on the left side does go down to Luminosity. I would not trade a tier 2 tower for a portal even.
Definitely not. Pyromancer is not worth 1,500 gold for eUnited. And LG now have a lot of space control. They're able to still be aggressive because they can rely on the safety of their own tier 1 tower and the tier 2, whereas if eUnited get into a little bit of a dance around the Gold Fury, they have to transcend towards the mid lane because there's no more towers in the duo.
Yeah, really big play. Not to mention the gold on top of everything. But really, I think you hit the nail on the head with what you said first, was really it's just about the map pressure, the map positioning. You don't have the luxury of going ollie oxen free and hiding under your base tower. It ain't there.
No
so
bunker.
You've got to fight the 5v5.
Can't hide under the bunker. It's no longer there.
Just gone. This game's kind of flying, Tully.
Like a bird.
If you told a bird a joke, how would it respond?
It would laugh.
And how would
like
that
any
sound?
other normal entity would.
What would that sound like?
I've received some tweets. I've checked.
I don't think birds laugh.
They laugh.
I don't think they do.
Well, you haven't met many birds then in your lifetime.
That's fair. Benji and the solo laners farming up, making the rotation over here. PolarBearMike stunned out, no consequence. Benji up here, no consequence. Really, I want to see the players fight over the Fire Giant here. Luminosity have a 4,000 gold lead. Look for a pick, and then take the 5-on-4 fight at the FG. That's what I'm waiting for.
eUnited don't want to aggress. They want to bait out Geno to dash taunt, look for the bomb stun over Geno, and then look for the return damage. It's a small and steady dance that both of these teams are playing, and LG are recognizing this. That's why they're still kind of grouped up, but Geno doesn't have to look for these engagements because, honestly, keegsmate can engage for them with the stun distance through the wall is long enough range and safe at the same time.
Athena onto the left side will turn around. leave her alone. Now the blue team underneath the tower. Here comes Kiki, blinked in, and the Phantom is chased out of Guan Yu. Wonderful ring to really force those options.
It was just a bait. Weaken on the backhand side. Going to knock up to Screammmmm. Going to use his ultimate. Catches Kiki right before the jump in a 5-on-1. He's going to survive, though.
Oh, my goodness. He gets out of there by the skin of his teeth. Kiki exits stage right. Luminosity unable to get the tower, but they certainly put in a lot of work.
How in the world did Kiki survive that one? Really impressive stuff. I'll tell you how Mantle of Discord pops, stuns out the follow-up damage just for a moment. That's all he really needed.
That was just impressive.
Mantle of Discord for the win.
So impressive.
A little bit of a shell usage out of Geno. On the tail end of that, there was a bomb being used over the wall from Venenu.
This is also so impressive, Toli. It's not enough it's not enough to get there around the timer. I need to see you at the Gold Fury when it spawns.
They have the vision for it. They have a regular ward inside the red buff pit from eUnited. They have a sentry ward bottom left mid, top left mid. It's all around the Gold Fury.
Certainly is. Fire Giant only has one ward, and it belongs to eUnited. Luminosity, not that interested in the vision just yet. They are interested in looking for Scream. The taunt's going to chase out the beads, I believe? No, the Magi's cloak beads already on cooldown. So now the next piece of CC will certainly be bad for Scream. Benji in between a couple of different players.
Trying to get a little frisky with keegsmate, forced in the defensive dash, and whenever you can force the defensive dash out of the Thoth, it's a lot better than allowing him to get the offensive one off, and that's something that LG don't even care about because they're still going to group up. eUnited don't care about defending that 10% mid-health tower as they should.
And I like how Luminosity approached this, where they went for the tower and they didn't hard commit. They said, look, doing a little bit of damage to the tower is good enough because we can come back, baby.
Oh, on the backside, keegsmate trying to back on out, but Clout takes out PBM. The sustain option is eliminated from eUnited.
Big knock-up from Benji, however. keegsmate on the ropes, dashing out. He catches Benji's dash with his own stun. Big plays coming out from the rookie mid laner, and Clout continuing what he started. Luminosity, baby. Triple. Screw that. Rolling trips. We can going in, baby. Vroom, vroom.
And that's going to be a hot deicide for the hot fire giant LG. It was a slow and steady bait situation where eUnited were always kind of waiting for these tier 2 sieges. But LG weren't interested in that. There was a small window to get a tier 2 tower in the duo lane. They went for it uncontested. They went for the tier 1 mid tower uncontested until a jungle fight finally broke out that LG forced the issue around the speed buff, chasing everyone from eUnited down. And impeccable accuracy from keegsmate, peeling for himself, stunning out Benji to prevent any sort of closure. And Weaken cleaning up.
I love that you returned to your catchphrase there because that's exactly what LG did. They forced it. And I ask teams to do this all the time. In fact, I said this in this very broadcast. You have a small 2,000 gold lead. Now, I'm not saying rush the Titan, but earn yourself the smaller victories, the invades here and there. And then when you have 5K, put it in their face.
It's just a posturing thing that Luminosity did, and eUnited couldn't handle it. They're not necessarily too far behind gold or experience-wise. Even though they're down about 12,000 now, that's the after effect. After losing the tier 2 tower in the solo lane, the fire giant on top of that, they're about down 6,000 to 8,000, which is still fightable around the 26 to 28 minute mark. The problem was their composition is starting to get exploited. PBM dying very quickly, and that's the thing that was taken advantage of when you don't have the sustain from the Guan Yu that was prioritized at the very first pick. It's going to be doom and gloom for the rest of the fights.
Weaken has had a fantastic game. 7 kills, only a single death. A couple of assists as well. eUnited falling back here. Somebody posed this in my chat last night when I was streaming, Toli, and I'm going to ask you the same question. Does Weaken have what it takes to be the best jungler in North America?
At times, yes. I would definitely say that he has the flashy mechanics to be able to do it. I definitely think that he can lead certain teams to elevate themselves above a certain level. I think in terms of World's performance level, there's something holding him back. And once he can finish and clean up that issue to be a little more consistent in every single game, that's when he'll be at that world-class level.
A big part of my answer was the team surrounding him. Wigan very rarely has had the same opportunities that players like Anderson has had. He came into the scene a little bit after all of those first players. Remember that?
Sure.
You and your peers were the first wave, and Wigan was sort of in that 1.5, that second wave. And so he hasn't really had a fantastic team around him, which is why I love to see Wigan pair up with two of these rookies, these less experienced players, Keegs and Geno. He's surrounding himself with new talent and then keeping the ones that he succeeded with in the past. Kiki from the AFK days, back when he played with our buddy Allied, that was some of his most dominant performances. And then Clout here, he's just been a great player throughout the league, independent of what team he's on. I think that this Luminosity team, I'm not saying that they're winning worlds right here, right now, but I think this is the best shot that Wigan has ever had in his career. Not ever. I think this is one of the best shots that Wigan has had in his career, and I'm glad to see him making moves.
Kiki blinking in, catching out PBM, taunt on top of him. Final Judgment actually shifts attention because Venenu at 1% health almost gets one shot.
PolarBearMike, however, looking for the initiation. Nice pull coming out from Scream. Bounce coming off from Wigan, and it sets up Clout. PolarBearMike sits down because Rama shoves him there.
Benji trying to retreat because on the backside it's Scream baiting out on the other end as Clout needs to retreat for the moment. Defender of Olympus keeping himself alive after all of that. Dust settles. It's only PBM dying, but plenty of sustain with the Fire Giant buff to continue the action. 30 seconds remaining until PBM respawns.
Fire Giant buff is gone from Luminosity at this point, and the Phoenix remains. Great defense coming out from eUnited. Totally break down how the red, white, and blue were able to keep Luminosity at bay.
It was just a bait because the damage from the Thoth player, keegsmate, isolates Venenu with the damage. It wasn't lethal, but it bought them a 10-second window to force Venenu to go back to base, heal up, go back in the fight. And when you don't have to worry about the Agni bomb stuns, you're fighting 5-on-4 with Fire Giant buff. Meanwhile, PBM still doesn't want to lose the Phoenix during this 4-on-5 for his team, so he sacrifices himself for the greater good.
Fire Giant respawning in about 20 seconds, and Luminosity is here. Now, eUnited trailing by over 10,000 gold at this point. You can see Ram already has a red pot, while some of the eUnited teammates actually have to build actual items. Do you defend this if you're eUnited? Because usually the answer is no, because there are fire minions coming down the wave. That's not the case now.
Definitely not the case in terms of fire minions, but the way LG was able to force a fight around the speed buff of eUnited 6 to 8 minutes ago leads me to believe that with a bigger gold lead, that eUnited are not going to win this team fight either. Plenty of vision on the south end of the right side of the mini-map that LG knew that they had that Fire Giant for free. Have another opportunity to go for more Phoenixes with the enhanced Fire Giant, giving them 30% additional structure damage.
32 on the clock. Luminosity have half of that in kills. And eUnited, only 5. 2 of which were First Blood. So we haven't seen eUnited get more than 3 kills since their very first action of the game.
They tried.
Oppressive.
They tried a lot. Scream kept trying to go in and looking for the pulls, but Luminosity started to make those adaptations, using some of their ultimates to give themselves the CC immunity, as Clout can go in the sky. Geno can use his Defender of Olympus. Weaken constantly going through the Cosmos to make sure he wasn't going to get pulled.
That's a big deal for me, is Weaken using through the Cosmos, not necessarily to avoid Scream, but as an initiation tool. When I look at eUnited, Venenu is kind of their initiator, and when he stands still to do the yeet bombs, he's getting smacked by the long-range Thoth.
Geno was thinking about dash taunting in, but they need to wait for Weaken to start shoving the mid lane a little bit closer. That global pressure Ratatoskr has this opportunity to force a 4-1 split.
Rat gonna pull out actually the healer. Usually you see the jungler do the 4-1 split. He's met with the other jungler or the solo. So Benji will trade spots with PolarBearMike, who gets tossed in and immediately responds with an ultimate of his own. keegsmate love the positioning way to the right, and Clout making it rain from the sky, but still, good defense coming out from eUnited. That said, Luminosity were able to do some damage, and the Phoenix barely alive.
All the beads still up from Luminosity. Clout just needed to use that ultimate to keep himself alive, but that Phoenix almost fell very quickly, and Luminosity going for round 2. Geno taunts Venenu. He's low.
That's what I was talking about, Tolly. Venenu tries to get the yeet bombs out to stun everybody, but he gets punished for it. Weekend going to avoid a punishment himself as he watches everybody else get grounded. Benji in trouble. Big time damage. Clout sends him to his room.
Scream trying to make it happen on the Clout. He uses the Aegis to keep himself alive. Scream, though, getting some shots of himself. Kiki going to trap in PB up. No Phantom this time to get out of it. The damage around 4 members. Can't get even on the horse. Meanwhile, Weekend moves towards mid lane. 2 Phoenixes dead. Only 2 eUnited members stand strong against 5 relatively healthy LG.
This is crazy, Anatoly. PandaCat just gonna get bursted down. Kill number 20 for Luminosity Gaming. Only the 3rd kill for keegsmate. How is that correct?
Wow. A lot of assists for the mid-Thoth player. And first game going to Luminosity. Great performance. Similar way they started off the spring split.
Here's the thing, Tolly, is that when Luminosity beat eUnited in the first week of the spring split, everybody said, all right, eUnited they weren't there yet.
Sure.
They were a little bit relaxed. They were a little bit rusty. And I said, sure. And here, well, eUnited aren't relaxed. They aren't rusty. They went to land. They looked good. They played. They cleaned it up towards the end of the spring split. And Luminosity still beat them here.
They might be a little too comfortable, honestly, at the beginning of the splits. That might be the same case the way Energy start off a lot of their splits. They start off slow, they finish high, a little bit too slow, though, considering that Obey beat them on Europe's side. So if eUnited can't avoid these early losses, they might not even make it to this land.
Here's the thing, though, for me, Anatoly, is how LG beats eUnited there. They didn't win. They didn't have the neck-and-neck game and win one team fight. They didn't okey-doke and win a game they weren't supposed to. They beat the defending world champions by 20,000 gold. And the problem is, the players on LG keep getting better. This is a scary sight.
It definitely is. The Odin, a little bit too strong to handle, I think, that they need to find an answer. Maybe Willish is the answer. We saw it in the Smite Minor League when Cope ran that one, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a hard switch in Game 2 picks and bans.
Definitely agree with that one. MVP, let us know who it was. If you ask me, it's Mr. Shrek. Easy peasy. Weekend came out, just played the initiation role perfectly. I don't know what more you want from your jungler.
Yeah, he made the plays happen. He made the adaptations against the dodgy that Scream was playing. Both of these junglers making the aggressive plays, but Weekend coming out on top.
Well, this one was pretty cut and dry, but we need to give Finch something to do, so let's break it down.
Yeah, thanks for giving me the honor to have a desk there bestowed upon me by Tom Haverford, or Tom Baddinger, what? Tom Haverford from Parks and Rec. Well, we're out here. It's real high-res hours, Taco. Finch and Taco after LG grab a win. Can't even get names right in a world where eUnited dropping to LG. Taco, tell me what happened. Was it just as easy as Kurt had a good game, or Weekend, rather, had a good game on the Rat?
I think that Weekend had a great game on the Ratatoskr, but there's something to be said about the teammates that he had following up after the fact. I know that Kurt set up a lot of good plays, and I get it. It's cool to hate on Weekend, and I think it's about time that people stop trying to, because this gameplay was excellent in game number 1 here between eUnited and Luminosity. I think there's something to be said, though, for Keegs. For what it's worth, and for my personal take, I think that Keegs is the MVP of that match. That player damage was crazy high, and I think that Keegs did a phenomenal job making sure that his jungler's efforts were not in vain.
Well, Taco, that may be what you think, but Mixer Chat does not agree. They voted.
They see KDAs. They're like, oh, this guy had 7 kills. He must have been doing everything. And
well, to be fair to them, Weekend was facilitating a lot of that damage that came out from not just Keegs, but Clout as well, especially in the early game. I mean, his rotations were so strong, or getting things started off for LG in a good way over here in the solo lane as well. But you're right, Keegs was fantastic to follow up.
Keegs and Clout both, and we were just talking about that, in fact, before we even went into game number 1 there, where it feels as though Luminosity is not like the other teams. They don't need to play around their solo lane or even their mid laner. They can kind of rely on their duo Hunter, because Clout has really escalated himself as a player, I think, in comparison to some of the end gameplay that we saw out of him right before he took like a little bit of a step back from the competitive scene. And now that he's been brought back into it, I think that this has been some pretty steep climbing through the ranks in terms of like where you'd want to rank North American hunters. He's definitely set himself up to be in that top-ended spectrum of it. Yeah,
he really has improved. Back when we thought hunters were just bad, even Clout was still doing well, right? And everyone else has kind of caught up to him and what you have to do well as a hunter here in this meta. But this entire LG roster played well. And Tom highlighted what I think is so important. It's not as if LG snuck this win away. They didn't win one team fight at the end. They didn't play a cheese comp. I mean, this was straight up Smite, where they just looked better than eUnited this game.
I think there's going to be a lot of upsets throughout this summer split when it comes to some of these teams that people might be expecting to be on that bottom end of things. Luminosity, they're only going to keep getting better. This is a team that I cannot stress it enough. I really hope that they stay with this same consistent roster, because the more synergy you're able to build over time, the better things are going to get.
Well, let's go.